Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Coffee and Christ on a Sunday morning. I'm Daniel P. Riley. I'm joined by Jonathon Yoppini. Michael may be joining us a little bit later, but for now, it'll just be the two of us. And I have something I wanted to share with everybody. You may have seen it, you may not have, but it's interesting to me. It's been on my mind all week long. So rather than a big opening monologue of some sort, I'm just going to put it up on the screen and let's get started on this thing because it's a doozy. This is a radio broadcast from 1965 by a radio talk host known as Paul Harvey, very well-known speaker of the time. Ooh, my screen's being funny. Give me one sec. All right, let's do this. Hopefully the sound goes through, but there are words on the screen so you can follow along.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old, I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Not too far off, eh?
60 years later.
Yeah.
6 decades. I can get a lot of shit done in a year. I can get a ton done in 10. This man talked about this 60 years ago, and everything is relevant to today. So
It goes back to the old adage of how history repeats itself. And
it's been on my mind all week long since I first listened to the whole thing. Like I'd heard a snippet of one of, I believe it was Akira the Dawn's little videos that had some excerpts from that.
Yep.
But I didn't know where it came from until I, found the actual full video and went, oh, and then I listened to the whole thing and I'm like, man, how did we as a civilization make no marked change in 60 years? There's a little bit of a dark thought, but I'm flabbergasted by it.
Well, like our challenge, buddy, right? You live in the darkness. I was born in the darkness, right? And I did. Thank you, Bane.
Yes.
Being in the dark isn't a bad thing at times, because it allows us to truly see the world and then how we can improve upon it. Now, the thing is, can we go out and improve upon the whole world? I think I can't remember if we talked about it on Coffee and Christ or if we talked about it on One More Saturday.
Yeah, we've spoken at length about what we can actually impact in our world. Yes.
Yeah, and the today answer is no, right? The only thing that we can impact is our immediate circle around us. Now, over time, can we impact many, many more? Yes. Should that be our focus? No. But the fact that the enemy, the devil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, is out there, because there's more than one Satan, and principalities. It's not principalities of darkness. And they're running amok right now here in the States. And Paul Harvey saw it back in '65. So becoming aware of that and then putting on the armor of God daily and battling against it, not only with ourselves, because I can speak for myself that sin is a human thing and we all do it.
Granted.
And especially our favorite sin, as one of your favorite priests likes to say.
That's true.
But we must battle against that. And the only way to do that is, like my shirt says, trust. Trust in God. Trust in His word. Lean in further. Or the principalities of darkness will win. And what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our families? What does that mean for our nation? What does that mean for heaven, right? Like, I want to make, there's a song called, I think it's called Make Heaven Crowded. Like, I want to make heaven crowded. I want to make heaven, and of course it can't be crowded because there's plenty of rooms for everyone. But I want to make it so crowded with so many people there. And the more and more I look around, unfortunately, I see there's going to be a lot of empty space, which sucks.
I'm not so sure.
Do tell.
But at the same time, I get where you're coming from. I took it a totally different direction, because I wasn't so much worried about the individual, although that's where the premise, I guess, started from. I recognize within myself that I am not the most perfect human being out there, far from it. But if I am aware of a problem, I still feel compelled to address the problem. And the thing that tripped me up about this video was, in myself, I would not wait 60 years to address a problem that I see. So I imagine everyone who listened to that broadcast 60 years ago. And then I think, okay, how many of them could possibly share my address the problem mentality, which would be a pretty decent amount. It may not be an insurmountable force of people, but it's still a pretty decent amount. And yet nothing changed. That was my dark thought, was that if I'm not the best type of person, there have to be at least some people like me, even a small percentage, 5% of the population that was exposed to that radio broadcast 60 years ago. Say 5% of those people were like me and went, we need to do something about this. But nothing changed. Is all of the things that were listed not only are more present today than they probably were in 65, but they literally came true.
I mean, we're certainly more aware of the things now. And see, and that's my biggest thing with things from the past to now. Are we has all the things that are going on now, were those going on back then? You know, like, and we
Yeah.
just weren't aware of it because of, you know, lack of internet, lack of social media, all that stuff.
Everybody was listening to the radio back then. But on your heaven subject, according to the new covenant, we are all tabula rasa. You know, our sin is wiped clean by the sacrifice of Jesus.
Correct.
Ergo, and if you go with Catholicism's understanding of, you know, deathbed confession, it doesn't matter at what point in your life you give yourself up to God, it matters that you do. Then I don't believe that there's going to be a lot of empty spaces in heaven.
Well, my concern though is what Paul said specifically about making children believe God is a myth. Because if that is the truth, or holding true to today, I mean, we've seen it, I don't know percentage wise, but the deathbed confessions, are those lower? Because more and more people think, oh, the Bible's cool. It's a cool book of stories. It's not real, but you know, we came out of, we were created from nothing, of course, because that's how everything's created, right? Everything's created out of nothing.
Could
like,
be.
no, there's a creator.
But
that's where my brain went.
Yeah, I use the theory of Scott Adams, who spent his entire life questioning the existence of God, and at the end he had the exact conundrum come up. I forget the name of the first philosopher. I think he was actually a mathematician who thought of it. But it's a recorded theory, which is, to paraphrase, the existence of God, whether or not it can be proved, is so present that the percentage likelihood of God's existence when I die determines I should believe in God before I die, just in case he's Pascal's wager. Thank you,
Pascal's
Bill.
Wager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, Scott Adams had that, and he was a rabid, like, agnostic bordering on atheist. He questioned everything so deeply that he almost reached a point where he was ready to just say, I don't think he exists at all. And then he got sick. And when faced with his own mortality, Pascal's wager kicked in. So my belief is that most people, when faced with their own mortality, Pascal's wager is going to kick in. because it's all well and good to assume that everything's fine when you're alive, but you don't know what happens after you die.
Correct. What's interesting about Pascal's wager, so there is this very, very kind of underground independent dude that raps, and one of his songs that he created it's called Pascal's Wager. And Pascal's Wager is actually one of the things that led me back to Christ as well, because my logical mind was saying, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen if I start looking into this? The worst that can happen if I don't believe is I go to hell. And and that's when Pascal's wager fully kicked in. I was like, well, if I do believe, well, then there's heaven. And that sounds pretty awesome. So
yeah,
let's dive deeper.
Yep. Just
what's wild though, so there is and you probably know him, Napoleon Hill. He's a Think and Grow Rich, but another book of his that a lot of people don't know about, it's called Outwitting the Devil. And there are a lot of things in that book that hold true to today as well. And the audiobook is fantastic, so I implore anybody that's listening to listen to the audiobook, and you can follow along with the book as well. But the audiobook, the individual does like the voices, and the voice for the devil is just eerie, as it should be. But yeah, the voice actor did an amazing job. The ideas of what Paul was talking about, what Napoleon's talking about, the fact that these things are still going on today just goes to show you that society as a whole hasn't improved from a moral perspective.
That's
sure
what I was worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we have more creature comforts, right? Technology has improved. All these worldly things have improved. But how's our soul? And yeah, to your point of what'd you say? The small portion, or the portion that says, I see a problem, let's find a solution. To me, that just goes to show how powerful the forces we are going against can be.
Yes, that was actually going to be my next point. That this is an observation by a man 60 years ago. It mirrors the observations of men 60 years in the future, but we're humans. And if we don't have the capacity to fathom God's plan, I don't think we have the capacity to fathom Lucifer's either. So these observations that we as humans have made are probably the bare surface of the enemy's machinations. I don't mean to be doom and gloom here, but I think there are plans by the devil that we can't even imagine that we're going to have to deal with as this goes on. And that's part of my concern with when I was listening to this, was if it's been 60 years and we've made no change on the things that we actually see happening, how are we going to combat the things that we can't see coming?
I mean, my brain automatically goes, you can't, but
Yeah.
then it shifts, and
Ultimately the defense is God.
Exactly. Like that is the defense. When faced with these things, who do we call upon? Call upon Jesus. We lean on God. His yoke is easy. His burden is light.
Yeah, but I'm a man. I want to fix it myself.
Yeah. calm down, ego.
Let me do it.
And that's when the humility comes in, right? And Mike talks about it. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
It's hard because as men, we do. Go get my hammer and my duct tape, and we're gonna get this thing going. Let's go.
Yep. I fix.
Yeah. You break, I fix. Like a very simple concept that I think a lot of people miss when, especially now with all the stuff surrounding male and female and all that stuff. It's like God made us different for a reason, and together it's a beautiful unity. And I'm going through Ephesians right now, and that's one of Paul's big things is unity under Christ. One of the biggest challenges, and I do believe that this was a thing, and I mean Paul talks about it in his broadcast. I do believe this is the thing of the devil, like getting all the different religious groups to go against each other over minute issues. And ultimately, we are called to unify under Christ. It's not Presbyterian, it's not Baptist, it's not Lutheran, it's not Catholic, it's Church of Christ. Like, we are to be under that umbrella.
Yeah. I mean, Paul Harvey says it in the broadcast, pitting nation against nation. The gender war is no different. It's just pitting
Fair.
men against women until they destroy each other.
Yeah.
Which people keep talking about, the low birth rate. There you go. There's the destruction right there.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, because birth rates, especially birth rates in America, are down significantly, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Which a lot of people thought it was going to be different because, COVID, locked in houses, all that stuff. But realistically, people are probably scared to even touch each other because of
that and
insane psychology.
That and medical advances in the prevention of conception.
Yeah.
And then the termination thereafter. I'll use the politically correct words. My words would be mean and probably get me struck on YouTube. But the politically correct words, the termination. I mean, you have to, not to go down that rabbit hole too deep, but you have to imagine that's one of the unseen plans right there, is pit men and women against each other so they're not making more humans that will go to God instead of Satan, but then increase the likelihood of those children being forcibly ejected before they even get a chance.
Yeah.
It's like an awful hedged bet.
Well, the question is, what are we to do? What would you say to that?
That's a good one. Individually, the same thing I do. Promote life, promote godliness, speak on actual morality over personal indulgence, and hope it sticks, because that's the only recourse I have as an individual human being. That's all my power is. ultimately it's, all power and glory to God there. And I can only do what I can do within my circle or sphere of influence, however you want to look at it. But I have said before, I operate under the assumption that life is a giant trial. It's not meant to be comfy and easy. It's meant to be hard and frustrating and painful and full of horrors, because that's the way the world has presented itself throughout time. In the old world of history, it was dangers of survival, animals killing you, cold killing you, too much heat killing you, not enough water killing you, not enough food killing you, things you can't see killing you, some of your own food trying to kill you. It seems like the world was designed to be survived, not thrived in. And I wonder sometimes if the concept of thriving in this environment was not part of God's plan after the fall of Eden. Because Eden was a place where humanity was meant to live in full peace and order with the natural environment that God created and God himself. And that didn't work. So they were sent out of Eden into a place where everything was literally trying to kill them. So my theory is that being out of conjunction with God means to survive. Being in conjunction with God means to thrive. And I don't know that we can thrive in this world outside of Eden. So our best bet is to survive it.
And I'm going to take the opposing view on that one, amigo.
I know.
Because I do believe we can thrive in this world. Because when we are in conjunction with God, like you just said, we are able to thrive. When we have that relationship with God, we're able to thrive. And I'm sure there's some agnostics or atheists out there that say, I'm thriving. I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is great. I have a Lamborghini sitting in the garage. I have millions of dollars in the bank account. Thriving. Winning, tiger blood, all of it. Let's go.
I have the dour demeanor of a Russian philosopher. I can't help myself. Don't worry, friend. It's going to get way worse.
So I do agree, though. Life is full of challenges. And that is the word I use. That is the only word I use. Because they are nothing more than that. They are challenges. There are good challenges. There are bad challenges. There are hard times. There are good times. But those are all challenges. What does Bill say?
French lit, I will die for love. American lit, I will die for freedom. Russian lit, I will die.
Wrestling a bear. Don't forget that part there. Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
So we can thrive in this world.
In conjunction with God.
Yeah. In conjunction with God, yes. And I'm a firm believer in how we speak about things truly dictates the reality we see around us. Now, am I thriving every single day? No, because I'm human, and my silly human voice gets the best of me sometimes, and I'm just like yesterday. It was a busy day. We had baseball in the morning, and afterwards, I got surprised with, hey, we're gonna go to 2 to 3 different stores on a Saturday in the middle of the day to get gardening stuff, which, Daniel, you know me, my intro / outrovert self was like, it's a Saturday. I do not like going shopping on a Saturday. And if I do go shopping, it's usually early-ish morning to avoid the crowds. And so
Get in, get out, get home.
exactly. Before 2:30, 3 o'clock, before school gets out. Like that's my goal for the shopping experience every single time. And so when they got sprung on me, my voice automatically kicked in. And where I was just like, oh my gosh. Like the first store, fine. And then the temperature started going up and I started getting hungry. And I was like, this is stupid. Why are we out here? The crowds are insane. Can we just go home? I'm so over this. And I remained somewhat in a funk for a few hours, truth be told. And I'm just like, I just need to recharge. I just need to recharge. So that was the challenge that I was presented with. And I did my best to not let it leak on my family around me. And I would say I did okay. Not superb by any means, but I did okay. In that moment, did I feel like I was thriving? Heck no, I didn't. I felt like I was surviving Saturday freaking crowds in peak planting gardening season, going to a garden store. So after though, I got home, got some food, and I just sat and I read a little bit of the Bible and just kind of recentered myself. And I felt so much better. Felt so much better.
Yeah, I have to do that too.
Right, but we're not always going to be thriving in this world. We just need to make sure that we become aware of what the heck is going on around us, including what Paul is talking about. And I couldn't agree with you more, Daniel, as far as like, what are we to do about it? Individually, we do our best to emulate what God has called us to be, and our impact around the world around us is out of our control, because how people respond to the way we act, it could be, perceived positive, perceived negative, out of our control. So we just keep on living good, right?
Yeah, that's fair. It's just difficult, and I think I understand a little bit more of the younger mentality, because up until now, my assumption, and again, use that word intentionally, it is me assuming, making an ass out of myself, that there was movement on the scale as far as the world is concerned. As much as I am a dour Russian philosopher at heart, there behind all of that is still a hopeful heart. And to be presented with a 60-year-old transmission, like direct from the past, that just says, hey, everything you're experiencing right now, we were experiencing 60 years ago, nothing has changed, was disheartening. It was very upsetting, because my hopeful side assumed that there was some movement, some little tick on the needle. Even if it was just a decimal point shift in the right direction. But listening to that is like, damn, every single thing that he pointed out is either still happening or has gotten worse over the past 60 years. And 1965 was 14 years before I was even born. So for the whole of my life, it's been getting steadily worse, not better. Which, your human side, your non-biblical side of your personality will take as a failure.
Yeah.
This is very difficult to wrap your brain around. Nobody likes the concept of failing. We have to get accustomed to it because there's no way that you can go through the entirety of your life without making a mistake. But no one, like my 80-year-old stepfather still hates it when he screws something up. He's had 80 years of practice. So I'm probably going to hate screwing up when I'm 80. And that's 8 decades. This is 6 decades. I'm not dooming and glooming. I'm just pointing it out. It's even more difficult to process a failure over such a vast amount of time than it would be to process, dropping your favorite mug and it's shattering on the floor. That's an instant, well, damn, this sucks. Now my day is ruined. No, this is 60 years of failure on our part as beings meant to become in conjunction with God. Now, I know people don't believe, but for those of us who do, or who even consider the fact, that is the general tenet. Our whole purpose is to find conjunction with God. So if I'm looking at the United States of America, roughly 300 million some people, maybe more at this point, I don't know, over the course of 60 years, made no closer step as a society toward God, but actually took some steps back, is a very, very difficult pill to swallow from a human standpoint. So I think I understand some of the doom and gloom that the younger generations are going through. They don't have the wisdom to work with it. They only have the statistics that they're given. And it's a shame. Because I think that makes it even more difficult for them. Having a 23-year-old daughter who I have these conversations with sometimes. One of the things I post on X all the time is my whole goal is to prepare my child to be a better version of a human than I was at that age. So I wanted her to be a better human at 23 than I was at 23. And then I see this and I think, man, we're so behind that they're actually further away. More so than I even realized.
Yeah. 2 thoughts, though. First thought is, and I don't know if it's just because of the algorithm and what I'm fed in my feed. And I'm sure there's certainly a bias towards that. But do you think more people are coming to Christ now? Not than 60 years ago, but just we'll take over the past 10 years. Do you feel like more people are coming to Christ now, or do you think that's just the bias that my algorithm is feeding me?
I don't think it's either.
Okay.
What I think it is pointing out the obvious and sensationalizing the obvious. People come to Christ regularly over the course of existence. It doesn't mean all of them will. And that's, again, like I said before, the pass-fail brain that us humans have. if every single person on the planet came to Christ, we'd all be like, woohoo, celebrate. But if all but one person didn't came to Christ, that one person openly said no, and just even if they just wanted to stay agnostic while everybody else did, we would consider that a failure because it's not the whole. And I think when it comes to media, what people have learned this is a slightly divergent rant on social media and what I call hack journalism. People who don't actually know how to reporting things makes it more difficult for us to comprehend. If you sensationalize 10 people deciding that they're going to be Christians, like I don't remember who it was, but it came across my feed last night. Some random woman who apparently had a huge OnlyFans following, canceled it, got baptized, was getting her tattoos removed and all of this stuff. And that was what the article was about. And it wasn't even like an actual journalist article. It was a hack journalist article from some rando on the internet. So sensationalizing that one person going, yeah, I made the wrong move and now I'm going to work towards being in conjunction with Christ, it sets a weird illusory standard in our head, like, oh, this person who may or may not actually be a celebrity came to Christ, so there's your win. The world is getting better. Well, it's 1 in 8 billion. So 108 billion. You can look at it two ways. The positive way is 100 people are pursuing a life with Christ. That is to be commended. You can also look at it as 7,999,999,990 are not. You depends on how you want to perspective it. But to sum up my ramble here, I don't think that it helps the situation, because what's the one thing that most of us do when we feel like we succeeded with something?
Take the foot off the gas pedal.
Yeah, we stop. So you see that sensationalized article about that one person turning to Christ, and you're like, woohoo! Well, I can sit back and do nothing now. I personally don't agree with that. Like, success means it's time to put the pedal down to the floor, drive the car straight through the wall.
Amen. Yeah, and every loss you found is a win. Like that's the way I perspective it. Every loss you found is a win. I was just curious on your take on if you think like more people are coming to Christ now or not.
No,
So
I think it's the same.
The same.
Like, numerically, statistically, if you look at the whole of the world, I don't think there's any change in the amount of people that find God.
Okay.
And that bothers me.
Yeah, I agree. Because that is the Great Commission. We are called to go out and create disciples of all nations.
Right.
And that's, if it's numerically, even if it's off by a few hundred, a few thousand, right? Like numerically, like from a percentage wise, that's still the same. That's statistically insignificant. So the fact
I also believe that the world operates on a pendulum of perspective. And
for sure.
The harder one side holds on to the pendulum itself to keep it over there where they can regain control, the harder it swings in the other direction to rebalance. because that's just physics as God intended it. So I believe socially the same thing occurs. We saw that with the woke era. You know, there was a period where you couldn't get away from the stuff, and now the pendulum's swinging so hard that everybody's talking about whether or not it's dead. I don't think it's ever going to die because everything works in a balance. But we're seeing they lost grip on the pendulum and now it's swinging the other direction to rebalance itself. Eventually, it's going to run out of momentum, and what's going to happen? It's going to sit right in the middle where it always should have been.
So my second point was what Paul is talking about and what we see going on in the world. All the challenges presented. Is that not biblical, leading up to the second coming of Christ?
Huh.
Like, we're told that it's going to get worse. We're told that we're going to be met with these challenges, that we're going to be persecuted to an extent, right? So I'm just curious if what we are seeing is a biblical thing.
Swell.
And I know. But there's hope, like that underlying hope still, because in the end, Christ will come and we will all be lifted. And then the lake of fire for the other ones. Not so hopeful for that part, but for believers, right?
Yeah. I guess
it just hit me. That's why I'm like, I'm curious if it's biblical.
Yeah, if you're, well, even from a non-biblical standpoint, just from a logical standpoint, if the greatest resistance occurs just before the success of an endeavor, which is what we know as true throughout time, then the opposition to the second coming would be at its highest point just before the break. Or, you know, to finish that word, breakthrough.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, it's not fun for us.
No.
But at the same time, here we are sitting in our offices. Mine is my garage gym. Yours is an actual office inside a dwelling. Yeah. Talking on these little devices to people potentially across the world safely, no bombs going off over our head. Like, we are so blessed. And the fact that we're even talking about these things is amazing, because we don't have to worry about, you know, our food killing us to an extent. You know my take on that.
Yeah. No, our food's not killing us, microplastics. What are you talking about?
But we're very blessed. I think that we do need to keep that perspective, because it is very easy to go down the dark, deep rabbit hole. It's important to be aware of the things going on around us and keep on living the way we should be living, the way God calls us to live, ultimately. But yeah, it just dawned on me about the whole, like, the resistance is greatest before the breakthrough. So I think in every generation there are people that say, "Oh, the second coming, it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. It's right around the corner." But it's like, none of us know. And in the Bible it says, you know, don't get ready, stay ready.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, and I think that was Kobe Bryant that actually said that, but it's fine. Nonetheless, it holds true. Don't get ready, stay ready. And I think that's something that we need to continuously remember, and how in our day-to-day activities, how we interact with individuals, how we interact with ourselves, how we interact with God. I think just stay ready, because it may be tomorrow, it may be today. I mean, shoot, we don't know. Or it may be 100 years or 1,000 years. Nobody knows. There's a bunch of numerologists out there that try to dive into numbers and say, oh, well, it's definitely going to be here. And how many times have those dates come and passed? So,
yeah, it's trying to grasp the unfathomable.
yeah.
Yeah. One of our challenges that we've been doing for your March program was that I did was a 10-minute meditation every morning. And one of the things that I've found about it is I don't actually feel like I've made my connection until the last couple of minutes of that 10-minute meditation, since we were talking about resistances. And it's a bit weird. I've gotten to the point where if my mind starts to wander away from its focus on God, I just start repeating the name until I stop thinking about other things and just start repeating the word God in my head. Like, you know, knock it off, stupid brain. But that, I feel like, is an example of what I was talking about with the resistance, is that I'll start out, I'll make my prayer. That usually only lasts like a minute or two. And then I'll start to feel like, I can't say that it's a fact, to feel like I'm losing connection after that, because I'm not actively trying to talk to him. I'm just sort of trying to reach a dwelling point with God after the initial prayer. And then my dumbass brain starts thinking about other stuff, or like music, song lyrics appear in my head, and I start thinking about those. And I'm like, okay, this is a distraction. This is a resistance. Something is trying to pull me away internally. So I just start repeating his name in my head over and over and over again. And by the time I get to like the 8-minute mark, then I feel like it's like I've actually found that dwelling point. And those last 2 minutes of the meditation are my closest connection. And sometimes I get thoughts that I feel are sort of like marching orders. They're not exactly go do this, but I feel like this is what I should be doing today. This is what I should be keeping my eye out for. So, but up until then, it's all distractions. It's all other thoughts and errant things and random ideas that pop in and go, hey, stop trying to get close to God. Think about this for a little while. Just an example of potential resistances.
Yeah. I mean, so many times those pop up. And I mean, we've talked about it before. The closer we get to God, the closer we get to his mission for us, his purpose for us, the stronger that resistance is going to be. And let it be, I know a lot of people try to blame it, like, oh, it's the devil. Like I think we talked about last week, Bobby Boucher. That's the devil, Bobby Boucher. But it's also our human nature, and just becoming aware of both is the path to have that breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. Bill says yes and no to the second coming point, because Jesus does say the horrible things that happen will continue to happen, and he also warns of false prophets manipulating those to deceive others. And then he added, I thought there was something he mentioned that would be a significant indication of the second coming being nigh, but I'm spacing on what it was. Yeah, there are some things directly in the book I'm sure we can all go and research them after the show to remind ourselves of what they were. But true. There's no, it's going to happen now, like on this date. There's no, there's a, if I remember correctly, there's a, you'll know from like these sort of things will happen beforehand, but it never says the second coming will happen immediately after that. No, it just says that these things will happen. And then at some point, the second coming will occur. And it does warn of false prophets all the time. The Bible warns of false prophets constantly throughout it. So there's no way for us to know. That's why we talk of God's time versus our time. And God's time is infinite. Our time is limited.
Well, it's hard because Revelations is full of symbolism, and the things that it speaks about in there, it's like, is it exactly what it says? Like the false prophets, that's pretty straightforward, and like we see it, unfortunately, we see it all around us
every day.
So every day. But the other things that are in there, are they symbolic of something else? Like, you know, and it's hard because unless we have that revelation ourselves, that uncovering of information that I think God can only show to us, we won't truly know. So it's hard to parse out like, okay, well, with the creation of AI, is that something that is leading to the the second coming? You know, who knows? Like,
hard to say.
Yeah, the stuff that is going on with like
nebulous statement, you will know at the end.
Yeah. You won't know until the end?
Yeah.
Or you'll know at the end.
What it's saying. You will know at the end. So when it happens, that's when you'll know. And you know, to my theory, and I make this joke all the time, when the end for me happens and I go to the kingdom of heaven, I am going to have so many toddler questions for God. He's going to get annoyed and make me go take a nap.
I think the number one question I'm going to have for God, I'm like, okay, God, I have my own idea on this, but I really need to hear it from you. Why do you let bad things happen? Like that is the first question that's going to be coming out of my mouth.
Yep.
Why do you let bad things happen to good people?
Or why? Why?
Yeah.
Why? And God's just gonna be like, go get a juice box and shut up.
He's gonna push you to sleep like he put Adam to sleep.
Yeah. God, not this again. Every single one of you.
He's just gonna have an FAQ.
Yeah. It's like 1 billion miles long.
Yeah. It's okay, it's indexed.
Yeah.
And there's a search bar, it's fine. Oh yeah, man.
That's my theory of the at the end, you know, you will know at the end is just when you pass from the mortal world, you become in full conjunction with God, all is revealed. So we will know at the end.
Until then, keep living good. Yeah.
Yep. Live as the Lord intends.
Yep.
Well, we are coming up on the end of the hour here, so I think we'll wrap things up. Jonathan,
I'm Bill. Bill, next time, buddy, absolutely. Because he said maybe I should have joined the combo.
Yeah.
Next time, hop on here, amigo.
Yeah. I did extend the invitation. And just so everybody that's watching knows, this live stream is open to everyone in our men's group to join the conversation. They can hop in and participate in whatever it is we're talking about on these bi-weekly shows. And he says, I only realized I had things to say after the fact. Isn't that always the case, sir? I walk into these shows going, I have a topic, but I don't know what I'm going to actually say.
Facts.
I'll get there by the end.
You guys can find me anywhere on social medias, X, Instagram. I'm _wellness_dad. I'm here to talk about anything, especially fitness, health related stuff. I am very much so a big proponent of meeting you where you guys are at and helping you create a plan for that. My actual roster of clients is actually full right now, but I do have a wait list, and even though it's full, I am still here for you guys to help you with whatever you need. So just reach out.
Congratulations on filling that roster up. That's awesome.
Thanks, buddy. It's not a huge roster right now because, other obligations, but it's, I was very stoked about it.
I'm one of those people in the roster. Jonathan has been helping me for, almost a whole year now.
Yeah.
With getting my fitness and health in order, and it's been working like gangbusters. So, take your opportunity to get on his wait list if you can. Because I walked into it uncertain I was actually going to get anything out of anything, like I always do, and was incredibly surprised. Even with I hope you don't mind me saying, it was literally just me going, this is what I want to do with myself. And he went, okay, well, let's set you up some routines to get you there. That's all the conversation was.
Yep.
And it's worked incredibly well for me. I feel a lot more energy in my day because of the routines that he's worked out for me, and they're focused on the things that I specifically wanted to address about my overall fitness.
Love it.
So,
thanks, buddy.
No problem, man. And as most of you know, I am Daniel P. Riley. I help people write books, and I write my own novels in the scant free time I have in between. If you have a story you want to tell, you can reach out to me on X at Mr. DP Riley or directly through my website, whimsyland.org. I just have a contact link right there. Send me an email, talk to me about what you want to do, and I'll get you started. But this show specifically is for the men in our men's group to sit down and talk in front of everybody and kind of explore what I, as a Catholic, refer to as the sacred mysteries. Every denomination has their version of what it's called, but it's a general conversation on God. We have them every 2 weeks. If you would like to be part of our group, talking with us throughout the weeks and meeting with us on Saturdays, reach out to Jonathan or I or Michael when he's around, and we'll get you involved. With that, as I always end these streams, get thee to church.
Get thee to church.
We'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Take care.